European powers competing to impose imperialism in African territories resulted in an event called the Scramble for Africa. The desire to extend European influence and technological advancements acted as driving forces. After David Livingstone mapped most of the interior of Africa, Europeans had an idea about what they were dealing with geographically. These factors created the opportunity for widespread cultural and territorial expansion by the Europeans. The scramble for Africa began when individual elites began seeking fortune for themselves. King Leopold II of Belgium sought personal fortune by exploring the Congo. His reasons for mistreatment of natives and exploitation of resources were solely for personal gain, and his plan was soon exposed as frequent Congolese death reports came in. He was forced to relinquish his right to the territory shortly thereafter. After Congo was released from Belgium's hold, other European countries, concerned that they were falling behind, began to feel compelled to pursue the Congo. This led to a full-blown expansion effort by many different European powers to gain land in Africa. European countries desired land in Africa for many reasons. Christianity is a universalizing religion, which means it seeks converts. By acquiring territory, European Christians could bring converts to their religion. As one of the most advanced regions in the world at the time, European countries felt it to be their responsibility to modernize Africa, a theme now commonly known by the phrase white man's burden, coined by Rudyard Kipling in 1899. Untouched natural resources such as diamonds and gold, as well as cheap forced labor of natives, opened up new trade market possibilities between colonies and European countries, increasing the economies of both. Lastly, European states felt that they were falling behind one another in expansion. This encouraged the countries to continue seeking territory in Africa to keep up with the growing competition. To avoid an impending war between competing European countries, a meeting was called to order by Otto von Bismarck. The Berlin Conference, which took place from 1884 to 1885, suggested the drawing of superimposed boundaries, which are boundaries that were placed on an area by an outside power. No African representatives were present at this conference, even though it greatly affected them. Each European state came to a consensus and agreed that Africa was to be divided based on current spheres of influence. If a country had an existing presence in Africa, usually on its coast, they would receive the right to a corresponding territory towards the continent's interior. This plan's execution was met with little resistance. African colonies were much less advanced when it came to Europeans' weaponry and military tactics. Also, because the Europeans had little knowledge of pre-existing cultural groups, they split territory based on their needs and weakened societies even more. As a result of the high demand for African territory during the Scramble for Africa, the continent was made up of many separate colonies under colonial rule. Africans who opposed European colonization were brutally suppressed by the military, which protected the interests of the colonizing countries. France and Great Britain were the leaders of invasions over the African land. British territory was in southern and western Africa. Africa was under these conditions up until the 1950s, when nationalist movements for independence began, but these divisions had lasting effects on Africa and even some on the rest of the world later on. Ethnic fragmentation and cultural conflicts that often led to war were widespread throughout Africa as a result of these divisions, since societies were split up and fell into multiple countries' control. The competition of colonizing European countries led to the start of the First World War, where citizens of African colonies provided soldiers for European countries. In conclusion, the rise of imperialist states compelled various European countries to expand their influence. Because it was unexplored, their attention turned to the continent of Africa. The Scramble for Africa, moderated by the Berlin Conference, transformed Africa into a more industrial and modernized society.